want to talk a little bit about the Kiai. If you don't know what a Kiai is essentially translated as a spirit shout. At least that was the translation that I remember growing up. It's a Japanese word, and usually it's accompanied with some sort of audible like haya or os or osa, which my son loves because he finds it hilarious because he thinks I'm swearing. But there is a lot more that's happening to your body, and there's a lot of other reasons of why we really Kia, right? So I know there's a disconnect between, or there's been a disconnect in the past between Eastern philosophies and Western philosophies, even Eastern medicine and Western medicine. But something like this, when you hear spirit shout, you think it's something mystical, but it's really not. It's really something that's coming down from deep inside, and there's a ton of physiological changes that happen as you perform it that we do all the time in Western culture, but may not even recognize it. All right. So, just going into a little bit of the mechanics of a Kiai. Kiai is essentially pushing all the air out from your gut, and it, like I said, it's usually accompanied by some sort of audible. All right, pushes all the air out. It usually occurs on an attack when you're extension at full extension when you're making impact. Okay, so that's a little bit about how it's accompanied into martial arts. Now, if you think about that in terms of tension, muscle tension, how that relates to Western culture, well, think about weightlifting. We talk about weightlifting all the time, exhaling on the contraction, on the hardest part, the tension, when you're tensing up. Same idea when you are striking. Okay, you're striking somebody and you're tensing on impact. Right? It's the same idea. It's really no different. There are other beneficial sides to that, strategic points to that on why we do that. Now, if you're fighting, say, an opponent, whether it be a sparring match or on the street, you're defending yourself, there's a concept called attacker beware. What that means is when you're attacking somebody or you're going on the offense, you're opening up attack windows. So if I throw a strikeout, I'm opening up attack windows for me to get struck at the same time. So the attacker, me, throwing my strikeout, I have to be aware of those types of windows. Additionally, if I get hit in the solar plexus, which is right below the sternum, in that soft little squishy area, right, I'll get the wind knocked out of me if I don't exhale all the way out. Right? Now, a little bit more about anatomy and physiology. You have a diaphragm inside here that moves up and down for when we breathe in, and then when we exhale to pull air in and out. It creates internal pressure. Now, if you've ever gotten the wind knocked out of you, I don't know why they call it that. It's actually really the wind getting knocked into you. So what happens if I get hit and I don't exhale all the way out, that diaphragm will tighten. Say if I just go, but not all the way out, I get hit in the solar plexus, my diaphragm tightens and it'll actually trap that air inside, giving you that feeling of getting the wind knocked out of you. So again, you're not really getting the wind knocked out of you. It's kind of getting the wind knocked into you because it's trapping it inside, and it makes you feel all funky because that's not how our bodies are built to work. Okay. So that's a real major physiological function or strategic function in fighting of why we actually do that. Because the Kiai will actually push all that air out forcefully. So if we do get hit, it's already tense. And that muscle getting hit while it's tense, it can't trap anything inside there. It will may tighten a little bit more on impact. But we won't feel like, again, it won't take us out of the fight where we have to catch our breath and possibly get even more injured from that. So aside from the anatomy and physiology, there's a lot of psychological aspects to sounding off in terms of sparring or some defending yourself on the street. It's a great way to intimidate an opponent. All right, so intimidating somebody with that spirit shout, that loud audible that comes from your gut that projects outward, it just adds and stacks to your advantage on how you can fight somebody. All right, you don't really hear a lot of that, but I will tell you this: you do hear a lot of this in boxing, where they go and they'll exhale short but fast to move quickly. Again, it goes right back to contraction of the muscles and tightening on impact on the same way you would in a Kiai. If you're in a martial arts school, you can Kiai or you will Kiai in different ways. So not just going Aya or Osa, whatever, but just the practice of sounding off and responding to your instructors has a lot of benefits to you. Being able to sound off and respond and project, one, lets the instructors know that you're listening. Two, it'll actually help regulate your breathing a lot better. So when you got to breathe in and out from deep within, you're no longer breathing shallow on the upper part of your chest, which only uses about 30% of your lung capacity. You're now using a lot more. So the volume of oxygen that you're pulling in and the volume of carbon dioxide that you're pushing out increases. That means more functionality, and it's more cardiovascular than you may think. Therefore, again, your health becomes increased the more that you practice it. And there's another reason that Kiais are not just a very quiet thing, and you've all heard the phrase, or maybe you haven't heard the phrase, but people poking fun of grown adults in pajamas just yelling at each other. They don't bat an eye when they're at the gym and maybe doing the exact same thing, exhaling out. Sometimes you'll hear people grunting. Sometimes you'll hear guys screaming like, huh, coming out and really pushing to pick up a heavy weight. All right. And of course, there are people that get annoyed by that. That's fine. But that is the same sort of idea for a Kiai. And that's where that Western culture can cross over to that Eastern philosophy and how they actually meld together. And again, this is something that we practice all the time. If you're ever at the gym and you hear a guy lifting like a heavy weight or like a power lifter, all right, you don't hear him go from his throat. You hear him project from his gut. All right, that's the basis of a Kiai. He's doing the Kiai out there. So try not to think of it in ways of, well, it's something too mystical to apply to real life. There are actual benefits to it that hopefully you'll now learn, because again, it's not just psychological. There's a lot of physiological changes that happen and a lot of benefits, including those in a sparring or defensive manner. So hopefully you guys learned something today. That is our Kiai.